Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Eleanor Hart, and I had been looking forward to my son's wedding for over a year. James, my only child, my pride and joy, was marrying a beautiful young woman named Madison. I didn't know her well, but from what I had seen, she was elegant, smart, and poised, maybe a little too poised. There was always something cold in her smile, but I chalked it up to nerves or family differences. Still, I stayed quiet. After all, this was James's day. And nothing was going to ruin it. The ceremony had been gorgeous. Strings of white lights draped over oak trees. Classical music, rose petals, and Madison in a gown that probably cost more than my car. James beamed beside her, looking every bit the man I'd raised. The reception, however, was where the chill began. I was seated at the far end of the long banquet table. Not next to the groom, as most mothers would expect, but next to a woman who kept checking her phone and chewing gum like a teenager. I smiled politely and tried not to take it personally. Then the first course arrived, soup. A waiter placed a delicate porcelain bowl in front of me, chilled cucumber and mint, supposedly. But when I picked up my spoon, it clinked against something hard. Odd. I frowned, leaned forward, and slowly reached into the bowl with the tip of my spoon. Something small and metallic glinted just beneath the creamy green surface. I set the spoon down. My hands trembled as I lifted the bowl with both palms and gently tilted it to the side. What slid into view nearly made me drop it. It was a wedding ring. Not just any ring. My wedding ring. The one that had gone missing from my jewelry box 6 months earlier. The one I had searched for in tears, assuming I'd misplaced it. My late husband's ring, the one he had engraved on the inside with. Forever yours, M.H. My heart thudded in my chest. The room felt suddenly too bright, too loud. My breath hitched. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. But who would do such a thing? And why? I looked down the table. James was laughing, raising a glass. Madison caught my eye, and in that moment, her smile curved just slightly, knowingly. I knew right then. This wasn't just a cruel joke. This was a warning. And if Madison thought she could get away with this, if she thought Eleanor Hart would stay quiet, she was about to find out who she'd really married into. I didn't make a scene. Not yet. I placed the bowl gently back on the table, careful not to make a sound. My hand slid into my clutch and gripped the ring tightly, the cool metal pressing into my skin like a secret I wasn't ready to release. The speeches began. The best man rambled through jokes that only James's college friends understood. Madison's father made a long-winded toast about tradition and legacy. And all I could think about was that ring. Why now? Why today? The question gnawed at me as I sat through the toasts and forced a smile. Then came the limo. After the reception, guests were shuttled to a private villa for the after-celebration, a post-wedding tradition Madison insisted upon. James had offered to arrange a car for me, but I declined. I didn't want to ride with strangers. Instead, I walked toward the parked limos alone, sleek black cars with tinted windows. A young valet waved me toward the last one. As I opened the door, I noticed something strange on the back seat. An envelope. Cream-colored. No stamp. My name handwritten across the front in blue ink. Eleanor. My stomach twisted. I looked around. No one was near. The valet stood by the driver's side, oblivious. I slid into the seat and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typewritten. No signature. No greeting. Just one line. You raised a good man, too good to see who he just married. My heart skipped. There was more. A smaller paper was tucked inside, a printout of what looked like a transaction from a pawn shop in Georgia. Item, platinum wedding band. Date, 6 months ago. Name, Madison R. Hayes. Payout, $450. No. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. 6 months ago, the same week my ring had vanished. The same time Madison had visited James while he was home recovering from surgery. She'd been so helpful then, bringing him soup, cleaning the kitchen, always so sweet. She hadn't just taken my ring. She'd sold it. And now, she was mocking me with it, placing it under my soup like it was a garnish. What kind of woman marries a man and taunts his mother with proof of theft, on the wedding day? I was shaking. Not from fear. From fury. But before I could say a word, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ask James about the basement safe. My breath caught. What did she mean? What had Madison hidden, or planted, in my son's life, or worse, his home? One thing was certain. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a setup. And I had walked into it smiling, wearing pearls. I didn't sleep that night. The villa was buzzing with post-wedding energy, guests laughing, drinking, the bride and groom basking in their spotlight, but all I could think about was that message. Ask James about the basement safe. There was only one person I trusted with the truth right now, myself. So the next morning, while everyone else was still recovering from champagne and fairy lights, I slipped away. I left a note for James that I'd gone home early, citing a mild migraine. Madison would probably celebrate the excuse. By noon, I was back at James's house. He and Madison had just moved into a charming colonial near the lake. Madison had insisted on remodeling everything. She'd gutted the kitchen, torn out the hardwood, and even had James knock out a wall for better feng shui. But I remembered what the house looked like before. Before Madison. Before secrets. The basement was unfinished, cold concrete and shelves stacked with tools and boxes. But behind the wooden staircase was something only James and I knew about. Years ago, after a break-in, James had installed a floor safe in the concrete, just in case. It was our little project, a bonding moment after loss. Back then, he stored his childhood baseball cards, some old photos of his father, and, as he once proudly told me, anything I can't afford to lose. So why had someone told me to ask about it now? I reached the basement, flicked on the light, and walked to the far wall. Dust clung to the shelves. A wedding gift still sat unopened in a brown box. But there it was, the safe, built into the floor. The keypad blinked red. I knelt, hesitated, then typed the code. James's birthday. It beeped green. Unlocked. I opened the door slowly. Inside were 4 things. 1. A manila folder labeled Hayes Medical. 2. A flash drive. 3. A crumpled receipt from a pawn shop, not the one I found in the limo, a different one. 4. A small velvet pouch. I opened the pouch first. Inside was a diamond ring. But not Madison's. It was another woman's. Smaller. Older. Worn. Engraved with a name I hadn't heard in years. Sophie. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Sophie was James's ex-girlfriend, his first real love. They dated for 3 years before Madison entered the picture. Sweet girl. Shy. Studying to be a nurse. She vanished right around the time Madison showed up. But the folder, it held more. Inside were medical reports. For Sophie Hayes. Blood work. Emergency room records. A note scribbled in pen. Patient reported miscarriage. No father listed. Declined further contact. My vision blurred. My hand gripped the safe's edge. Sophie had been pregnant? And Madison knew? No. No, this was too much. Unless. I grabbed the flash drive and bolted upstairs. I didn't even take off my coat. Plugged it into my laptop. A single video file. Labeled, Madison Confession.mp4. My heart hammered. I hit play. Madison, sitting in James's old bedroom. Her voice calm, casual, but chilling. She thought she could keep him. Cute. But James isn't the kind of man who stays with potential. He wants polish. Legacy. Sophie didn't fit the mold. So I made sure she disappeared. She still doesn't know the pills I gave her weren't for her migraines. I slapped a hand over my mouth. Oh my God. She didn't just steal my ring. She stole my son's entire future. And he had no idea. The walls felt like they were closing in. That video. That confession. I sat in silence for a full 5 minutes, staring at the screen, frozen. Everything made sense now, the ring in the soup, the smug smile, the message in the limo, the missing Sophie. Madison hadn't married my son for love. She'd eliminated the competition, literally. And now she was wearing white like she earned it. But there was one detail that kept gnawing at me. Why the soup? Why the ring? Why taunt me? Unless she wanted me to find it. That kind of confidence only came from someone who felt untouchable. Someone who thought their tracks were clean. She underestimated me. That afternoon, I called an old friend, Veronica Dale. She worked at the county clerk's office. We used to play tennis together before her knees gave out and mine started clicking. I gave her the wedding date. The full names. James Maxwell Hart and Madison Rose Hayes. Veronica promised to check the records and call me back. It took her less than 2 hours. Eleanor. I double-checked. There's no marriage license on file. What? I don't know what kind of ceremony they had, but it's not legal in the state of Virginia. No license was processed. And get this, Madison listed herself under a different last name on her last filing here. Madison Rothschild. Rothschild. That wasn't even close to Hayes. She'd lied about her name. Lied about the paperwork. Lied to James. Which meant the wedding wasn't real. She'd staged it. Or at the very least, faked the legal part. Maybe to get access to accounts. Property. Status. But she wasn't my son's wife. Not legally. Not morally. Not anymore. Suddenly, it all became clear. The soup wasn't just a warning, it was a game. She thought she'd won. She thought she could mock me with my own ring, knowing full well I had no power to stop her. But now, I had evidence. I had Veronica. And I had one more card to play. Because tomorrow morning, James and Madison were leaving for their honeymoon. And I was going to ruin it, before it even began. The sun was barely rising when I checked into the hotel. The Ritz-Carlton, Suite 904. Honeymoon reserved under Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Except there was no Mrs. not legally. Not truthfully. I dressed in navy and pearls, subtle, elegant, not dramatic. But what I carried with me. That was warfare. A printed copy of the pawn receipt. The anonymous note. The forged marriage license, or lack thereof. And Madison's video confession, loaded and looping on a thumb drive, ready for the lobby's TV via USB port. I arrived just before they did. The concierge, a polite young man named Peter, offered to escort me up. I shook my head. No. I'd rather greet them here. I handed him $100 bill and a smile. In 10 minutes, please turn on the lobby TV. Channel 2. Don't change it. Peter blinked, confused. But he nodded. At exactly 9:13 a.m., the sliding doors opened. Madison walked in wearing sunglasses the size of teacups, dragging a white designer suitcase. James followed, smiling, still glowing from the day before. My heart twisted. He was so good. So pure. Still thinking he'd just married the love of his life. I stepped into view. She froze. James lit up. Mom. What are you doing here? Madison stayed silent, her fingers tightening on the suitcase handle. I smiled gently. Couldn't let you leave without one more wedding gift. And then, right on cue, the TV in the marble lobby flickered. Madison Confession.mp4 began to play. Loud and clear. She thought she could keep him. Cute. But James isn't the kind of man who stays with potential. He wants polish. Legacy. Sophie didn't fit the mold. So I made sure she disappeared. Heads turned. Guests stared. The front desk clerk gasped. Madison's face went pale. James blinked. What is this? I handed him the manila folder. Evidence. Of everything. She sold my ring. She lied about her name. She drugged Sophie. She faked your marriage, James. He stared at the papers. The receipt. The folder. The flash drive. The date stamps. Tell me she's lying, he whispered to Madison. Madison dropped the suitcase and turned on me instead. You think this proves anything? You're just bitter I didn't suck up to you like the other mothers. I laughed, a short, broken sound. Sweetheart, I didn't need you to like me. I needed you to not poison my son's life. And you couldn't even manage that. Security was already walking toward us. Someone from the bar was filming. James just stood there, torn. His heart breaking in real time. Was any of it real, Madison? She didn't answer. She turned and stormed out of the hotel, heels clacking across marble like gunshots. James stood beside me, silent. Finally, he whispered, "You saved me." I shook my head. No. I just uncovered the truth. You saved yourself the moment you decided to listen. Epilogue. Weeks later, James reconnected with Sophie. She was living in a small town, raising a 5-year-old boy. His name was Lucas. And he had James's eyes. Some weddings are built on lies. But some families survive because someone finally spoke the truth. And all it took was a cold bowl of soup.